إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.
So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the Young Smirks podcast. I'm here joined by a good friend of mine, Ibrahim Hindy. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam.
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
It's been a long time.
Very long time, yes.
How long ago would you say it was?
I would say 4 years.
4 years?
Is that what it
Yeah.
was? Yeah.
I interviewed you for Peace TV.
Yeah.
What was the topic? It was about family and...
I think, we did one about family. Yeah.
It was
we
really
recorded
nice.
a lot. We recorded a lot in
Yeah.
those few days.
Each speaker, like at least, how many shows did you do?
Yeah, probably 50 or so,
Yeah,
something like
subhanAllah.
that. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
I've not seen
It was
them
great.
being aired. I don't know if they've been
I haven't
aired
seen
yet.
them either, so who
I
knows?
hope they do get
They
aired.
lost the footage or something.
SubhanAllah.
I don't know. But it was great. Like, we met so many amazing brothers. on
Yeah,
that trip.
yeah, I met some really good brothers that trip. Gabriel,
Yeah.
I became very close with Gabriel.
MashaAllah.
I lived with him for a while in the UAE after that.
Yeah, mashallah.
And we traveled a lot.
Yeah,
And,
I get his WhatsApp messages all the time.
Yeah.
He sends me all the stuff he's doing.
Yeah,
Mashallah.
and Ibrahim McCarthy, mashallah, I became very good friends with him as well.
Mashallah.
But yeah, it was a nice time.
Yeah. I'll never forget, actually, when we were there, and that was the time when the election with Trump was happening.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with Sheikh Abdurrahim, and we were talking about, someone was asking about the elections. I think we were just sitting eating, and some random person came, and they're like, do you think he's going to win? They hear us talking in English, so they're like, do you think Trump's going to win? And I was like, no way. All the numbers are against him. And Sheikh Abdurrahim, he's originally American. He's like, no, he's going to win. Like, he just knew, subhanAllah, and like he had that like insight into the American mind that most people don't have, I guess.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. So yeah, subhanAllah, you're an imam in Toronto,
Yeah.
mashallah, and you are very active in the community and online as well.
A little bit.
I see your posts.
Yeah.
And
Alhamdulillah.
yeah. So how did you become an imam? Where did it? Is it something you'd always wanted to do as a kid?
I'd say almost the opposite. Obviously, my father is an imam at another masjid in Scarborough, not too far from where we are right now.
I actually met your father in Kuwait.
Yeah, he sent me a picture of the two of you, mashallah. I would say almost the opposite. Like, I ran away from being an imam, and then I kept getting pulled back into it. Alhamdulillah,
Just
like,
as I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
I love studying, and I love like learning. But subhanAllah, I just kept finding myself drawn to teaching and to giving halaqas and to being involved. And I at the same time I was working in the corporate world at the same time, but I got to a point where it was, I wasn't doing justice to my family, because either I was giving da'wah or I'm working, and it's not fair for them. So I had to choose something, and I was more passionate about da'wah and connecting with the community, and so I made that decision. And alhamdulillah, at the time I made the decision, I had no idea where I was going to work, what I was going to do, but I just tawakkaltu ala Allah, and I went into it, and I relied upon Allah, and so many different opportunities presented themselves, and now it's almost, there's too much work, and I don't know what to do with all the.
I've been trying to meet you for the past week, and you're very busy. SubhanAllah.
Yeah,
very.
SubhanAllah. I wanted to come to one of your talks as well, but we just couldn't make it work. Events at our masjid and whatnot.
MashaAllah. So you're originally from Egypt. Your background is from Egypt.
Yeah.
Well, you was born in Canada.
I was, born in Canada, in Mississauga, so the same city that I have a masjid in. So born and raised, which is quite rare, I find.
Yeah.
I feel most mashayikh will move to a different city.
Yeah.
Because I think when you stay in your city, people will look at you like you were the kid I used to play with, right? So,
Ibrahim Green told me once. He said, "You'll never be liked in your own city."
Yeah.
Or even your own country.
There's some truth
to that.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you go to a new city, then it's like a new slate, and then people only see you as being like someone who's teaching them about the deen versus like, oh, he's the person who teaches us about the deen, but I also used to play hockey with him growing up, and I also used to, so it's like,
Yeah, you're not like the big sheikh. You just, always
Yeah.
Ibrahim, he plays basketball. And
Exactly. Which is, it has its benefits too, because I feel more connected with the youth in the community. Like, they don't feel like
I'm
this
actually
barrier.
I'm really impressed with the facilities for the youth in Canada, in Toronto specifically. A lot of the masajid have like basketball courts, facilities for the youth. I'm really impressed actually.
Yeah, you guys don't have that in the UK. They don't really have that, right?
Not really,
Yeah.
no.
But I think real estate is more demand in London to find a space for.
Yeah, most of our mosques like the size of this, apartment.
Really?
Yeah, quite small houses and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, here you've got like the big.
We have more space and stuff. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
But there's a lot of activities going on, a lot of dawah activities, a lot of Islamic organisations working, trying to help the youth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's quite impressive.
There's definitely a lot more we can do. There's unique problems here in Canada too, but alhamdulillah, like I think masjids kind of end up competing with each other. You see one masjid doing a basketball program, so you have to do one, and they do something else, you have to do it. And it's good. It's like good competition for the sake of Allah.
SubhanAllah. So did you travel to study when you was younger?
Yeah, so my high school years, I spent most of it traveling to different countries because my parents had me doing homeschooling. And so the benefit of doing homeschooling was that I could be mobile while also keeping up with my studies. So I went to Egypt for a long time and spent with a number of different teachers. I used to attend Sheikh Abu Ishaq's halaqat and things like that. In Saudi Arabia, I stayed in Mecca for a while, and I have some mashayikh from there, Sheikh Ahmed Abdul Qadir and a few others who are there. And then, so I did kind of informal studying with a lot of different teachers, and of course at home. And then when I finished high school, I did a degree at the University of Toronto as well. But that's more of like the academic Western side. But alhamdulillah, like I had the background from a younger age and with Muslim scholars. Alhamdulillah.
So what were some of the challenges that you're facing in the community?
So definitely like dealing with the youth is the biggest issue. And making sure that they feel confident in being Muslim. The strain of Islamophobia is existent everywhere in the Western world right now. And like it's almost the biggest issue is not, certainly there's issues with safety, like people getting hurt and people getting attacked. There was one brother who came to our masjid like a year and a half ago maybe. He was beaten up in a parking lot, almost like to death. And they were saying things like terrorist and things like that. So certainly some type of hate involved in that. And so like there are cases like that, but the bigger issue is usually psychological.
Yeah.
Like young Muslims want to fit in, they want to get a good job, they want to get ahead. And particularly as they get out of university and into the workplace, and it's like they find this feeling that Islam's holding them back. Yeah. So they want to give away their Islam to kind of, get ahead in business or whatever it might be. And that's a problem, right? Like when they don't feel that confidence in being Muslim and you feel pressure. Even like watching TV shows and movies and you get like subliminal messages that people who are religious are backwards, people who are Muslim are, less intelligent, they're not thinking, the only people thinking are like atheists. And those are messages that are found in like TV shows and things like that. And then they feel like, oh, I need to give up my religion for me to be rational. Yeah. And it's coming from an emotional place, not an intellectual place. Yeah. I think there's a gap there where kids are being told to be Muslim, but they're not being told to understand Islam. Yeah.
Partnered with like a secular education, 15, 20 years going through the secular education. Yeah. Has a huge effect
for sure
on their thinking. For
sure.
And you have a huge inferiority complex amongst the Muslim youth as well. So this you get all sorts of challenges from this. You have people doubting Islam, doubting the existence of Allah, doubting Islam as a religion, people simply just chasing the dunya, not having the fear of Allah, you know, getting involved in big sins and major sins and things like this. Gangs, this is also, I've seen this in Toronto as well. This is happening in all the major cities in the West, you know, Muslims falling into crime and things like that. So, I mean, how do you try to get around this as an imam? How can you tackle this?
Yeah, I mean, the gun violence issue in Toronto is a very serious one, and a lot of Muslims are involved in that. And, you know, the people in the masajid who have, you know, janazah facilities will tell you, like, it's pretty often that there's someone, a Muslim body coming in with bullet wounds and things along those lines. And I don't actually know how to deal with that, other than, you know, to try to provide resources for people and try to be there for young people as much as possible. I think there's sometimes a breakdown in the family unit for a lot of Muslims out here. A lot of fathers will leave their families here and then maybe go to another country to work and things like that, and it leaves their young boys not having that father figure in their lives. And you see that with a lot of, even in our masjid, like people basically bringing their kids to the masjid to be like, here, be their father, you know, because their father's not in the picture for whatever reason. And you have to assume that responsibility, because if they don't have someone they can look up to who is a man, and they feel like that's a big brother to me, or that's like an older man that I can respect and learn from, you know, they're going to go to the streets to get that. Right. That's not the only reason why violence exists on the street. You know, there's also people economically can't get a job, you know, or they just feel like they can't even, there's no point trying to get a job and to get ahead because, like, from, you know, where they are, the education that they get in this part of the city that they're at, there's just no point. Like, why try? You're probably going to fail. So there's a lot of different dynamics going on, but as Muslims, like, we just have to, you know, I'm speaking from a place of ignorance because I don't know what it's like to grow up in some of those circumstances, but all we can do is just try to be there for a lot of these young Muslims.
Do you have, like, some of the youth in your community, they have doubts? What type of doubts have you come across, and how do you deal with these doubts? Yeah,
I mean, you get, for sure, you know, just recently there's a sister who brought her daughter, and the conversation was like, you know, she's like, I'm not Muslim, or I don't know if I'm Muslim, or I'm having a lot of doubts. Okay, what's the issue? And she's, you know, kind of coming from the perspective of, like, she's in public school here, and a lot of her friends are gay, and so then she's like, I see that they're good people, they're really nice to me. So, and Islam is saying that it's a sin. So I can't, like, put these two things together, so therefore I got to reject one thing, and they're really nice to me, so I'm gonna have to reject Islam. That's kind of like the calculus in her head that she worked out. So, you know, when I sit with them and I have these conversations, like, you know, how do we decide what's a good thing, what's a bad thing, and having that, like, longer conversation with them, you can at least get them to a point where they're more like they're thinking more about what they're doubtful about. Because how would you answer something like that? So I think that's kind of like the perspective that I came from, is just like, okay, well, what do we know what good is, and what do we know what evil is, and how do we know what good is and what evil is, and where does our morality come from to begin with, right? Is our morality, you know, we talk about, like, is morality objective or is it subjective, right? And if it's objective, then where does it come from? What grounds it? And so that's obviously a bigger philosophical discussion, but when you get them thinking about those bigger terms, because, okay, homosexuality, you're looking at it today as it's a great thing. And obviously we don't preach any hatred or anger, and I'm sure there's a lot of really nice people who are homosexual, just like there's really nice people who are Christian, really nice people who are Jewish. You know, doesn't mean that we agree that everything they believe in is correct either, right? And the Quran has its own set of beliefs, right? But where do we come to understanding what a good thing is and what a bad thing is? And that is a very deep philosophical question that what they have to think about, because even in Canada, a lot of things, including homosexuality, was considered really bad 50 years ago, and today it's not, right? And tomorrow, I'm sure things that are considered, really bad today in 50 years are going to be considered really good, right? So if our perceptions of morality keep changing, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And should our morality be grounded? And how do we ground it? And what do we ground it in? Because ultimately, if you're a believer, you're going to ground your morality in your scripture, right? So, and then if you bring that conversation there, then we could talk about the Quran, and we could talk about why the Quran is true, and I think that's a way to get them to think through
How
those
do they
problems.
react to these discussions? Do you find that the youth who have these doubts, that they're easily convinced by having a good conversation with someone like yourself who can actually deal with these issues, or do you feel like it's more their desires they want to kind of ignore?
Yeah, it's case by case. I mean, sometimes it's like they've decided, so they're not really interested to discuss it because they've made a choice to believe in this. It's not about the facts. It's not about the arguments. It's not about the information. I've chosen to be this, right? I've chosen not to be Muslim, right? And it could be different reasons, their friends, their environment, whatever it might be. But I think a lot of, most young Muslims who have doubts, especially maybe in the beginning when they're starting to develop doubts versus when they've committed to it, is that they've never heard anything rational about Islam, right? They've been told, go pray, right? That's the average parent teaches their child Islam, not just here in Canada, probably around the world. They teach their child how to pray, so fiqh as-salah, how to make wudu, fiqh al-wudu, how to make ghusl, fiqh al-ghusl, and then what are we left with? How to fast, and that's basically it. Maybe memorize Qul huwallahu ahad and some surah from just Amma, and that's it. That's your education. You're done. Okay, but why do I memorize these surahs, and why should I pray, and why should I fast? And those bigger questions, their aqeedah, their understanding of Islam, they don't really go into that, right?
I think it's rare to find, someone who's been given a good grounding of Islam, the good basics, and been raised in, in a Muslim community.
Yeah.
It's rare to see somebody like that leave Islam, just,
for sure.
Yeah. It's usually they've not had the basic teachings of Islam.
Absolutely.
Like you're saying, there's other issues within the family that makes them, have these doubts.
Definitely. And I think you'll see that, if somebody has a good grounding in Islam, they might become sinful. But, they'll know what they're doing is wrong. But they're not going to be the person who's like, I don't believe in this anymore. That's incredibly rare, like you said. But, subhanAllah, even people who are, I'm sure Muslims that you know that are born Muslim, most of them discovered Islam on their own, right? Even if they grew up in a Muslim household and they learned Quran and they learned, some hadith that were taught to them, and they learned how to pray and they learned how to fast, it was some moment when they were a teenager, when they were a young adult, that they decided, I want to learn about this, and I want to make a choice to believe, right? And it's almost like they on their own got that intellectual understanding of Islam to satisfy themselves. But it wasn't given to them by their parents, it wasn't given to them by their masjid, it wasn't given to them anywhere earlier. And that's a problem for them, for all of us.
SubhanAllah. So what else have you been up to over the past 3-4 years?
SubhanAllah. I'm like the jack of all trades with the master of none. So I'm doing a lot of things, but I feel like I'm not mastering anything. So one thing that we are trying to build, and you're talking about facilities, we're trying to build a community center across our masjid. So our masjid, and then right across the street, we bought another building, and we're trying to raise, inshallah, the funds to build a swimming pool and a full gymnasium, things like that, and fitness center, all attached to the masjid, basically. So that's a big project taking a lot of my time. Yeah, I was hoping that you would come by and I'd give you a tour. Inshallah, the building's quite a large building, alhamdulillah. So that takes up a lot of my time. But there's that. Working on a lot of issues with Islamophobia and outreach and along those lines, and trying my best to help the community in those areas, and in reaching out with the media, and in reaching out with government officials, especially on the issues of Islamophobia. That's kind of what I focus on the most.
I missed you last time you came to the UK. You came to visit Ayura.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, it was a really good trip.
MashaAllah, how did it go?
It was amazing. I think that, what was interesting was that, so a bunch of us from Canada, mostly from Toronto, went on this trip. And it's like, my masjid's here, his masjid's 15 minutes that way, and the other guy's masjid is 30 minutes that way. And it's like we didn't know each other till we went there, all the way to London. Just spending like the days together, learning together, obviously joking and eating and things like that. It just like created those bonds of brotherhood. That's amazing. I almost feel like we need to create things like that for imams in different cities. To do a retreat with them or something like that, to that, because it builds that like brotherhood between each other and sense of trust and unity and everything. Like we talk about these words of unity, but like how do you do it? You spend time with each other, right? Like we spend time in Dubai, and like we're going to be friends forever because of that, right? Even if we disagree on something, it's like it doesn't matter. We've spent time together, like. So that was what was amazing about it, and of course Ayara's training was really interesting too, and learned a lot from Ustad Hamza and some of the other brothers who were there. And
they've done some great work on atheism and these doubts.
Yeah, absolutely, and they helped me like refine a lot of my thinking about some of these like arguments, and especially dealing with a lot of these youth on these questions and all of that.
Was Sabur Ahmed there as well?
Yeah, he was.
He's very good at simplifying everything and making it very easy for the youth to understand.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Actually, he was teaching us something about evolution. And he taught us, and then he was going to take questions and answers. SubhanAllah, something happened to him personally, he had to leave. And I was like, that was the only shortcoming of that trip, because I had all these questions for him and he had to leave. But he's very intelligent. Like they've done a lot of research in the areas they're teaching, and it shows.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So what's the plan for the future? You're going to get the centre up and running?
Yeah.
And is this like a waqf, or is this for the community to use? Is it, how will it?
Yeah, so it's so community centers don't make much money, but we have attached to it like a school and the masjid and everything, so we're hoping together it's like sustainable, and that people can, like, the idea is for it to be kind of a Muslim YMCA. I don't know if you guys have YMCA in the UK. So it would be, of course, built on Islamic principles and Islamic values and all of that, but it's open for even non-Muslims to come. So like there'll be women swimming, but then if non-Muslim women wanted to come and participate, there would be an avenue for them to do so. Men swimming, if non-Muslim men wanted to come as well, it would be permissible, as long as they uphold like Islamic values and all of that. But as a way to kind of like build bridges with the wider community. So that's kind of the idea with it as well. And most importantly, like it's about, if you're a young Muslim, this is a place where you can go and you can feel at home. Right? Like you go there and you feel like, this is a safe space for me. This is a space that I can feel really confident being Muslim. And the other thing that's really important for us is building connections between different age groups. So that, I feel like one of the things missing is like the young people are here and the old people are there, and there's no like relationship almost between them. And if we can create a place where there's actually overlap, because if you're in university, you want to study, there's study space there. And if you're young and you want to play basketball, you can play basketball there. And if you're older, and we're going to have, seniors programs as well, they're there as well. And kind of creating that relationship between all of them. That's the intention. Wow.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's really a big pleasure to meet you and see you again.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's great seeing you as well.
Yeah, it's great to see you, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, I'll try to come down to your centre before I leave.
Inshallah.
And come and see how it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Inshallah. I'd love to have you.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Wiyaakum.
Assalamu alaikum.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء